I don't have enough material to make some big podcast right now, but I did want to say a few words about this whole Elizabeth's overall master plan, which has been on my heart since right after the Channel 5 interview back in February and March. I'd written some things then, how these next generation young people are being put on stage, and she's appointed many of them as leaders, and had these ultra-loyal, younger married people around her at Ashlon, etc., constantly surrounding her. Many of the remnant services were being cast, and still are, as it seems to be, as country music line dance nights, or like quarterly elaborate youth balls, or youth concerts, or assemblies, or gatherings where people who were featured were mostly younger. Now, it's possible some of these recent events and exposings and members leaving I've been putting out have made these older church leaders think a little bit harder on what assemblies should look like. But what I'm describing is what their pattern has been for a long time. But what's the reason for all these youth-focused events? It's, in my opinion, by design. If you simply look at an example like how Germany, and specifically Adolf Hitler, benefited from regimented youth organizations, namely the Hitler Youth, which became as regimented as an army, and focused on the sole purpose of lifting up the leader. These brown shirts, as they were given uniforms, ended up using taunts to others who weren't as heavily involved in violence as they grew more numerous and powerful. It was all masterfully used to lift Hitler up through political realms, as these young people simply were completely indoctrinated with Nazi ideologies as well as religious and political philosophy. There was nothing these people felt they couldn't accomplish, and nothing basically would stand in their way. It was the ticket to having any sort of success within Germany. Gwen was similarly like-minded, with using and surrounding herself with those younger. It all started with a group of people who were just trying to be a part of this brand new religious movement. But as the years progressed, it became quite obvious that the ones who would get to be in Gwen's inner circles or hang out with were younger than her. Some of these also became top leaders. The Angers or Anges, the Martins, the Stites. All of these were 10 years younger than Gwen. And later on the days, people like Joya or Elizabeth Miller Lorenz, and think of how even Joe was 10 years younger. There were, of course, other people who were lifted up in leadership around her age, but there was certainly more of a distance. And as time went on, these people were brought into counseling meetings in distance or ignored and corrected, which caused many of them to back off in a way. Not to even come close to feeling like they were in Gwen's ear or having top leadership status. This was by design. Gwen had nothing to fear with surrounding herself with younger people, which gave her some authority as far as being the adult or older one in the room. Like she was the exasperated mother to these people, and they were too like-mindedly supportive to question things that adults Gwen's age or older would have been looking at. Things like how Gwen was during earlier Way-Down workshop days, or when she was in college at University of Tennessee, or how David Shamblin felt, or anything like that. People who knew her before ended up being ousted from working for her or at the church, or pushed away. People like the Sims, who would have known other preachers who had said similar things, or remembered weight loss teachings which were frighteningly similar to this revolutionary way down workshop teaching. People like my Aunt Deborah Scobie, Gwen's sister. Anyone who knew the Gwen before Remnant. All of these had no place in her Remnant regime. As far as Elizabeth is concerned, she grew up seeing Gwen drink this self-worshiping cup of surrounding herself with ultra-loyal supporters. And all who were in Remnant in the 2010s on would remember how she already was beginning to hone in on having the youth over to her house, at the Hannah's house, where she would be slinking around, possibly drinking some wine while sitting and giving these kids lessons and things of that nature for years. She was a homebody anyways by nature and didn't like the stage as much personally. So this is what she did. And throughout it all, Gwen was 100% knowing what she was doing and even was coaching her through it, as long as it didn't ever get to the point that it interfered with Gwen's 100% absolute reign. Once the plane crashed into Percy Priest Lake, the long-term, overreaching master plan was put into effect. So not to drag this on, but you all adults who are still involved with Remnant Fellowship, I'm giving you a personal warning. If you aren't involved with high-up leadership or a loyal guidance lady or are tied in with business dealings or financially in some way with these same people or Elizabeth, you have nothing but a quickly flimsy, crumbling brief time left as far as having any sort of concern or respect with this new regime. This is her path she's been on. And as hard as this may be for you to hear, she simply doesn't care if you leave the church or get sick or something bad happens to you. They already have written you off. You don't factor into this whole Remnant 2.0 version. And this is exactly how she intends it to be. No one left but these ultra-loyal Lizzie youth, as well as her current loyal guidance people. They will be the ones who you'll have to kiss up to and quickly stand up and clap for if you want to try to hang around in the future. I've even seen these younger people recently start to sow their wild oats or experiment with how much they can get away with as far as trying to jump up and defend Elizabeth and Remnant, as far as standing up to my social media posts, like Ashton Jost, as well as her sister Avery and their brother and their spouses, and Hannah Day with her commenting about how their finances have never been hurt by RF, or the blasting people with insults comments like what Jesse Ottinger said on my live stream, getting laughs and likes from other youth. They're starting to feel the power. And this is the beginning of what I've been saying. These people will be your next generation leaders. I also have heard from someone within the last 48 hours that younger people are attacking their parents and other adults outside of Remnant right now, saying that 99% of what Michael says on his social media is lies. These are strong statements, and there's a very clear reason for this. They are sensing that their time has possibly come. And Elizabeth is loving sitting back and watching these completely unaware and brainwashed younger people go to battle for her and Gwen's reputation. As I don't want to belabor this, I'll leave you Lizzie youth with something I've said in meetings and calls and lunches with ex-members since I left the church in 2021. I've always said, if there's just 1% truth to what I've been saying in all of this, then you all who are dedicating your whole entire lives to serving and supporting this church need to be very concerned and need to pay attention. So I do find it interesting they're now saying 99% of what I'm saying is lies. Because you're going to be, in 15 years, with your kids who are now teenagers, you'll be the adults who have become completely jaded and fed up because you're now being neglected. And you'll be leaving out of whatever remnant is at that point and saying to yourselves, I wasted my entire life with this cultish mindset. Recall the old Japanese proverb. If you find yourself riding on a train going the wrong direction, the longer you take to get off, the higher the price the return ticket's going to be. Until next time, keep it real.